want to wine on you, show you what this waistline do all sorts of things to you. I wanna make you my boo. Now I want to wine on you, show you what this body do. Put this body.
What is up, you guys? It's Dee. Welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, we are back again with another class 3 of Sewing 101. And in today's video, we're really gonna get down into actually sewing and understanding sewing and understanding, you know, some of the few pieces of your sewing machine that I have yet to explain or yet to demonstrate. So for those of you guys who don't know, I am a second year fashion student. I'm hoping that I'm going to third year next year, but you never know because God will humble you. Anyways, in first year, so in my first year, before we even got started to like making garments and clothes like that, there were a couple of steps, a couple of activities that we had to do for like a week straight, right? The first one was obviously knowing the functions of an industrial sewing machine and stuff like that, you know, how to go about trading your sewing machine and stuff like that. But because of we are at home and most of us have domestic sewing machines, I've already set up a video on how to set up your Empisal sewing machine as well as your Empisal Overlocker. So if you guys have not seen those videos yet, I'll definitely put them in the description box. And then I've also mentioned a couple of things that you needed to know in terms of like answering the questions you have about your sewing machine, like why your needle breaks, why it keeps jamming, and so on and so forth. That video I'll also leave a link in the description box. The second class was understanding fabrics and understanding patterns and how to go about reading patterns. That video I will also link in the description box. So that first week of our first year, okay, not first week, but like the first sewing week of our first year, because the way our, like how fashion is structured for us is that 1 week is dedicated to designing. The second week is dedicated to making the patterns of the designs that you've previously made. And then the third week is dedicated to cutting and sewing your garment based on the patterns that you have constructed. So that's just how it goes, you know, that's our cycle and stuff like that. Obviously we have other classes in between like history and business, and we also have CMT and so on and so forth. But this one is basically going to be focusing on few steps and activities that you need to know in order to get started with sewing. One of the reasons why I'm bringing this into the table was because I actually had a viewer who reached out to me on Instagram, and she was like, she does feel a little bit overwhelmed because, you know, she really doesn't know much about sewing. And like I said, like as much as we all want to get started with sewing and stuff like that, if you don't understand certain things like how to actually go about sewing and stuff like that, then your sewing machine will definitely frustrate you and stuff like that. Because I have done that and it frustrated the hell out of me, because you realize that you come on YouTube and you watch all these tutorials and stuff like that, those people are professionals, or those people have been sewing. So you as a beginner, where do you need to start? What type of activities do you need to know? What type of things can you practice that can, you know, increase your sewing abilities and so on and so forth, or your sewing skill? So I'm going to give you some of the knowledge that has been passed down to me and has been passed down to the first years after me and so on and so forth, and the first years before me. So in here I have a file, right? So this is the file that I used in first year to document basically all of my work. Not necessarily all of my work, but most of the activities that you need to know about sewing. And the first thing that my lecturer did was that she actually provided us with a sheet of paper. She provided us with a sheet of paper, but we won't be using a sheet of paper. We're going to be using fabric. So this is basically what she provided us with. As you can see, straight lines, curved lines. We also have different types of curves. So you see, like there are a lot of varieties of, like, you know, learning how to sew in corners, you know, like how to go about maneuvering your sewing machine to make these type of lines, how to go about doing these type of activities, and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, these were the activities that we did, and I'm going to roughly take you through some of them using fabric, and we're just gonna work our way in it. So obviously the first one that we are going to do is straight lines. Now there are a couple of tricks that I want to teach you when it comes to your sewing machine on how to go about sewing straight lines. Now in fashion, you understand that the human figure is not straight. There are curves, and I know that for some people curves are relatively hard to do, especially if your stitch is like on the outside, like on the hem or something like that, edge stitching and stuff like that, especially if you're doing jeans. Like a lot of my classmates found it difficult, but with enough practice you can definitely achieve. So I know I'm talking a lot, but I just want you to guys understand that, how, like, why this is important, and where you gonna use it, like in terms of like when will I ever use the stitches and stuff like that. So yeah, because I know that sometimes you kind of be like, oh, when will I ever use the stitch, but you'll be surprised on how many times you'd use these particular stitches or these particular methods. So let's go ahead and let's set up the sewing machine, and then let's get started. So over here I have two sample materials, and I am making use of polycotton for this particular tutorial. And as you guys can see, I've already gone ahead and I have drawn on my materials. Now what I would suggest is that this, I cut it 15 by 15. So what I did was, on the first material, I actually made several lines, several straight lines that are 1 centimeter apart. The reason being for this is because usually your seam allowance is 1 centimeter. And also I want to show you guys how you can also go about measuring your seam allowance using your sewing machine, because sometimes you may, like when you cut out your material from your pattern paper, it may not have like the indication of where your seam allowance is starting. So you have to measure it. Obviously once you get used to sewing, you'll be able to do this without having to measure it with your sewing machine. You can just literally measure it with your eyes. So what you guys can see is that I've actually left a side empty. This is because of what I would like you to do is, you usually follow this guide right here, and then once you get here, you need to start estimating using your eye to see that, okay, where is my 1 centimeter, and go straight forward or straight down. Also, another thing is, this is also just to give you guys an idea of like how to calculate distance, and also how to go about sewing a straight line down. Okay, now on this particular piece of paper, as you can see, there are curved lines here. Now what I wanted to give you guys was like an idea of like a hip curve, like the kind of curve that you'd usually find on a skirt or on the sides of the skirt, right? Especially if it is a figure hugging type of skirt and so on and so forth. This is usually would be like how it would be structured. So obviously my curves are not too deep. You can make them deeper if you would like. If you want to challenge yourself like that, you are more than welcome to do so. I also did leave a little bit of space out here to continue these lines without this guide. We will see if we'll be able to achieve that. So if you guys can go ahead and basically cut out a material 15 by 15, and then make straight lines and make curved lines, then we can go ahead and move on to actually sewing. Okay, so I have brought you guys a little bit closer to my sewing machine. Reason being for this is because I just want to focus on this plate over here, right? So as you guys can see, I'm pretty sure you are aware that there are these lines right here on your sewing machine. For those of you guys who do not know the purpose of these lines, this is basically to guide you for like seam allowance and stuff like that. So for instance, I've already lowered my needle, right? And I want to check how, like say for instance, if I wanted to make my distance 1 centimeter or my seam allowance to be 1 centimeter, but I didn't draw on my fabric. How do I go about estimating this? So I've got my measuring tape right over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it there where the needle is at, and just see that, oh, okay, so basically my seam allowance would be roughly here. So the distance from here, from the needle to 1 centimeter, is literally at the end of my foot, on the side of my sewing foot, my zigzag foot. You see? And then if I wanted to get a distance of 1.5 centimeter, then my distance would be this first line over here. This first line that you see over here. So obviously I have noticed that with some sewing machines, this distance varies. Sometimes it is 1 centimeter from the needle, and sometimes it could be 1.5 centimeters from the needle, and the distance between each one can vary as well. At school, usually the distance is like 0.5 to 1 centimeter, based on the sewing machine, the industrial sewing machine. However, in this one, I do believe that the distance is relatively 0.5, somewhere there. Yeah, but it actually looks like it's a 0.4, but it should be a 0.5 distance, right? So obviously, if you're using your sewing machine and you don't have any thingies on it, you don't have any lines on your fabric, then this is basically how you would measure your seam allowance. So there we go. So now I can see that, okay, this is 1, right? And if I wanted to get 1.5 centimeter, then this is 1.5 centimeter. So yeah, that is how you go about using, or that's your sewing machine's guide to you to know about your seam allowance, or to assist you when it comes to making sure that you are not sewing too much into the garment and you're not sewing too much outside of the garment or outside of the seam allowance and stuff like that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's get started with our sewing. Okay, so as you guys can see, I've gone ahead and I've placed my fabric where it needs to be. And then always, before you get started, what you want to do is you just want to take the wheel yourself and basically turn this, and it goes in. And then what you need to make sure is that, let me just lift you guys up just a little bit, is that when you're doing this, this needs to go up once again, right? So whenever you're turning your needle yourself, this always needs to come back up. Then you have made a full turn. One of the reasons why I'm showing you that, guys, is because of one thing I've noticed with my machine is that if I don't make this into a full turn, it will jam, right? Because now it's not where it needs to be. The wheel is not where it needs to be, and the needle is not where it needs to be. So it needs to make a full turn, and then only will your sewing machine sew properly without giving you problems. So now let's go ahead and let's start making our straight lines. So now we're going to go ahead and start sewing. Then you're going to backtrack. Then you're going to go ahead, follow that line. You don't need to be fast when you're doing this. Just follow your line as best as you can. I'm doing this slow with you guys so that you know that there's no rush, man. This is South Africa. There's no rush in South Africa. Y'all know that, right? For those of my viewers who are not from South Africa, there's no rush in the world. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lift this up. Going to just snip it over here. And now you guys have an idea. See how straight this line is? Now, I just want to also show you guys that your girl was not a pro in first year, okay? This right over here is how my lines were looking like in first year. You see, it's not particularly straight. Some of them are just like doing weird things over here. Some of them look like, I feel like these ones are decent, and then everything else after that was just terrible. So yeah, so that's one thing I need to show you guys, that it is okay not to get this at the first time around, and hence why I'm making you guys draw, because in our class we didn't draw the lines. You had to just do it freehand. So here I'm drawing the lines for you guys. so that you can do it and understand it, because bear in mind that when we first started, we did this on paper, then we transferred it to fabric. However, you are going to do it on the fabric with the lines that we had on the paper. Then you're going to continue without the lines. You know what I mean? So we're killing two birds with one stone, really. Okay, so once again, we're going to put this down, and then we're just going to, you know, and then we're going to repeat the same thing. And see, now even with the speed, I can still keep up the straight line. right? And there you go. There you have it, another straight line. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this side, which doesn't have any lines to it. Now I'm going to try and go as straight as possible without the lines, right? So one thing I'm going to use is, here is already my guide over here. This last line that I drew is going to be my guide. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sewing. Okay, so you heard that right. You heard my machine. So just an example showing you guys. So my wheel, I didn't twist it all the way up. So now I've twisted and it's done the full circle. Now let's go ahead and start sewing. Then okay, then we go up, snip, and ta-da, now we have a nice straight clean line, and you're going to continue to do that until you okay. So now we're moving on to our half curved lines, and same thing. What you're going to do is you're just going to put it there, right? You're going to just turn your wheel, making sure that it does a full circle. Then once you have done that, you're going to go ahead and start. Now the thing about this, the trick about this is that you have to maneuver the fabric, right? Leave all of that. You need to maneuver the fabric, right? You need to make sure, because as you are sewing, what happens is that when your needle goes up, right, this foot lifts just a little bit, just to allow the fabric to move forward so that your needle can go back down on a space that it hasn't gone down in yet. You know what I mean? So now we're going to go ahead and just maneuver. And you're going to do this as slowly as you want, as fast as you want. If you trust that you are the girl that you think you are, or you are the guy that you think you are, then do it, honey. No one will fight you. But basically, yeah, take your time. Like I said, there's no rush in South Africa. Then you're going to backtrack just a little bit. And the trick about backtracking is that you just need to go 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 forward, and you are done. So let's see how this one came out. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? It's perfect. It's beautiful. And guys, like, if you don't get it right the first time, like I said, practice makes perfect. As first years, if you could see the the things that we submitted, I'm about to show you my circle right now. Right? Just give me a sec. Look at the work that I had submitted last year. This was how I was making circles. Okay, it was not neat, it was not straight, it was not accurate. It's actually looking like a distorted rainbow. And yeah, like, practice makes perfect, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and make another example over here, and we're just gonna want to put this in, make a full circle once again, and then now we are going to start sewing. And remember, guys, you don't need to rush. There's no hurry. And then just go. Take it slow. Relax. Take it easy. And there you have it. Like, the more you do this, the more easier it becomes. Like, it gets to such a point that it becomes like a muscle memory. And that's just how I think about sewing. Like, that's my understanding of sewing, right? I'm going to try and achieve the same curve without using the lines. However, using this last line as my guide, okay? Okay, hold on. And then we're going straight, full circle. And then we're just gonna go 1. If you do satin bonnets, then you will know that, like, with practice, you can go making the perfect circle. Okay, so let's just go. Also, guys, I just want to give you guys a tip. As you can see, I'm using my footer, this end section right there, this side section, as my guide, right? And I'm making sure that this distance from this line remains the same. Okay, let's go ahead. Just finish it off. And then let's see if it came out perfect. there you have it, guys. What? Are you not the girl that you think you are? Are you not the guy that you think you are? You can literally go slaying with these little activities. All you need to do is just be consistent, practice on a daily, and trust me, you will be a pro when it comes to sewing and making sure that your lines are straight or perfectly curved, because with practice, it makes perfect. If you guys like this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your family and friends so we can all be family and friends. Catch you guys on the next tutorial, okay? Bye.